Hey guys, Kevin is my for Arrow Season 4, Episode 4, Beyond Redemption, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. Last week's episode wasn't bad, it just was kind of like been there, done that, very formulaic, and this episode, damn was this a surprise. This was by far the best episode we've had in so long, guys. I mean, it has been a long time since we've had a perfect episode of Arrow, but that's what this was. This was a perfect episode, and the thing I love the most about this episode is that it was so different than any other episode we got in season 4 because it was character driven. And yes, a lot of the season has been that, but a lot of the season's been let's track down Darhk, let's figure out what's going on with Darhk, and that's not what this episode was at all. This episode was all about Lance primarily, and I love that, especially since a lot of people don't really like Lance. I think this was the episode where we really see how great of a character Lance really is. And whoever plays Lance, I can't think of his name right now, but his performance in this episode was amazing. I think this was might have been Lance's best episode personally. I absolutely loved everything they did with his character, and this they need to make more episodes like this because this is when Arrow is at its best. Arrow is at its best when it focuses on the characters. I mean, yes, it's cool to like see them track down, metahumans and things like that, but just seeing them, have focus on Lance and on a character that doesn't get focused on too much is awesome. And I loved every minute of this episode, and definitely best episode of the season. So let's just get into it. So we start off right away with some new characters. We see these group of goons in a warehouse, and they're taken out by a SWAT team led by this female cop. Now, the female cop is the same person that played Reba in Hannibal, which is it's cool to see her. I like that actress. I don't know her name, but I think she's a really great actress, and it's cool to see her be on other shows. I heard she was going to be on this, which is cool. So a pair of plainclothes cops come in, and when they try to stop what she's doing, she takes them down too, and basically that's how that whole thing turns out. And we get a lot of focus on these cops in this episode. They're a very important part of it. So later, Thea and Laurel are arguing about telling Oliver about Sara, because obviously Oliver's dealing with a lot, and they know what's going on with him, and they know that this is probably just gonna not be the best thing to do. Laurel doesn't want him to know, while Thea's saying maybe we should tell him, which is understandable. I can understand why Thea wants to tell him, because of course, Thea doesn't want to lie to him. Thea, Oliver specifically said, I don't want to lie to you anymore. So Thea needs to do the same thing and not lie to him and keep any secrets. And they don't want to keep secrets. Laurel, I think, doesn't really want to tell him because I guess that maybe she just doesn't think that he should know, and that maybe it's just going to put too much pressure on him, especially because he's trying to be a happier man. This is just going to bring him down, and I think that's kind of what Laurel's concerned about. Diggle joins them, saying that Oliver is a big announcement, and when he shows up with Felicity, now remember how I talked about how they didn't really focus on Oliver becoming mayor? Well, that was the basic plot of this episode in terms of Oliver's stuff. Everything going on with Oliver in this episode is all about him becoming the mayor, and I love that. And I loved how the second that Felicity and Oliver showed up, Thea thought that they were engaged. I thought that was great. I love that. We know that's coming. We know that's coming. They're definitely going to get engaged at some point. I honestly really love these two together. I've said it before. Oliver tells him he's decided to run for mayor, and they're not really that excited about it. They're happy for him, but they're just not really sure if this is the right time to do that and if he's the right person to do that. And, I like seeing that they're supportive, but they're just not really sure if this is the right thing to do. So in the basement, the campaign obviously shows them why they're actually there, which basically we realize that this campaign office that belonged to Brother Blood, which I think is awesome that we saw that. I mean, again, Brother Blood's a character that we haven't heard about since season 2, and I love that. And we see that there's a new Arrow lair now. The Foundry is no longer the Arrow lair. He talked about how the Foundry, nobody really was using it but him, so he closed up shop there, and now they're in this new Arrow lair, which is designed by Cisco and Star Labs, which that's awesome. I mean, that's awesome that we saw that. And Felicity hears of the cops who were found dead, and Diggle's going to head off to look for evidence, and basically Oliver's going to talk to Lance and basically figure out what's going on there. So Lance is taken up with the shooting when Oliver shows up to talk to him and tells him that he's decided to run for mayor. Lance leaves when he gets a text from Laurel, and Oliver takes the evidence to process. He can tell that there's something more going on with Lance, and he doesn't really know what it is. So the flashbacks in this episode, again, really did not care too much about, but I thought they were okay in this episode. They weren't too bad. They weren't boring. They were okay. Oliver helps the woman he rescued last week, giving her a shelter and tips on how to hide out, and he has a plan. Whatever. I didn't really care. I don't really count the flashbacks as part of the episode, so, I'm going to talk about it, but I don't really care too much about it. So in the present, Curtis is trying to figure out who the Green Arrow is, and I loved how much of a nerd Curtis is. I mean, honestly, Felicity and Curtis are just two big nerds. I love that. I mean, he is just so interested in finding out who the Green Arrow is. He's convinced that the Green Arrow might be. I'm trying to remember who he thinks it might be. He has some clues of who it might be, and Felicity asks him to help her find who hacked her phone because she knows that there's something going on with her phone. She doesn't know what it is, but she knows that someone hacked it, and he says it wasn't him, and it looks familiar, and it reminds him of some code of Ray's. And of course, we know that Ray is trying to communicate with Felicity, and he recorded a statement for his death, but Felicity really doesn't want to see it. Obviously, that part of her life is over. She's with Oliver now. She doesn't want to really remember Ray because that part of her life is over. She's happy with Oliver. She doesn't need to be reminded of men in her life. That's just not something she wants to tackle. So at the lair, Oliver gives Felicity and SIM card he got from the crime scene. She triangulates it where it came from based on previous locations, and Team Arrow suits up to go there. It's empty except for one room, and when there's no people there but an armory. He finds body armor belonging to the police and figures out that there are dirty cops killing people. This was very interesting when we found this out. There are dirty cops there, and you don't know if this is Lance's doing or what this is really about, but this clearly is not something that Darhk is doing. These cops don't seem to be interested in Darhk at all. So definitely this is very interesting. I don't really know. You don't really know why this is happening. So Laurel takes Lance into the basement of her apartment building. It's very sad stuff. I have to say, again, I wasn't a huge fan of them bringing back Sara last week. I really wasn't. I thought they did. It was very abrupt. It was too easy, too simple, but it works so well here. It gave us some amazing scenes and stuff, so I have to say. And Katie Lutz is already doing a great job at just being this, Sara that is terrified. She pretty much is. Sara is pretty much. I don't really know how to I don't really know how to how to say it, but she basically is changed to a post, and he's confused as to what's happened, and he's traumatized at seeing what Sara has become. And Laurel's trying to get her to remember. She's trying to show her images and pictures and everything, trying to get her just see if anything can trigger her memory, see if there's anything that she can do to get Laurel to, get Sara to remember what's going on. And Laurel tells him it'll be okay, that she's with them. But then when Sara grabs Laurel, he pushes her off, and he knows that. Sorry, I gotta turn off this light. Sorry. He knows that things are not going to work out as well as he thinks they are, unfortunately, which really, really sucks, but that's what happens there. So back at the lair, Oliver and company talk about the dirty cops and how to find drug dealers, and Thea and Diggle head out undercover to a nightclub and start asking around. They want to know, who these drug dealers are. They want to know what's going on with that, because obviously this is something new. They don't really know what's going on there. So back at the police department, Lance is at his desk when Oliver comes to tell him there was dirty cops, not gangs, who killed the detectives, and Lance wants to be there when they lure the dirty cops in. So I was kind of thinking, is this Lance's doing? Is he the person that got these dirty cops there? Because we know he's working with Darhk and he has connections to him. So I was really trying to figure out where these dirty cops are from. Where are they coming from? And it seems like Lance is very interested. So in the flashback, Oliver blames the other soldier's death on another landmine, and one of the others doesn't believe him and insists on seeing the woman's body. Basically, that's what happens there. So again, I don't really care too much about the flashbacks. Diggle and Thea wait for the dirty cops. Arrow alerts Lance to a coming vehicle. A firefight breaks out between Team Arrow, the SWAT officers, and Lance. This was actually a really intense scene. I have to say, some really good stuff. Something that Arrow's been doing very well all season. Awesome action, honestly. This is a really great season for action. The lady cop from before brandishes custom blades, but it's brief. They leave without the drugs, but Team Arrow doesn't get them into custody, making the trap kind of a bust, and it really didn't work out well at all. Obviously the trap failed, and Lance is really upset about it. Back at the lair, he's really upset about the fact they've already backed up and running tech-wise. He missed the anti-vigilante task force had the kind of high-tech gear the dirty cops were using, and offers to share precinct resources with Felicity to speed up the investigation, which I definitely like seeing. I thought that was definitely something I liked. So, also guys, I loved the scene with Lance where Oliver calls him Captain Lance, and he's like, "Can I get a code name too?" And he calls him Detective. That was great when he says, "Can I have a code name too?" This is Lance, who usually doesn't have any humor. Just the fact they had that little bit of humor with him with him in there, I thought was great. I love that. I love how fun this season is. I love that they're not afraid to have some humor in there. That's something I definitely really love, and I think is working out very well this season. So the task force want to kill Lance, but Lady Cop rejects the idea, saying that she can use him. And it definitely seems like they are not with Lance. They obviously want to kill him. And this is very interesting. Again, we don't know what their agenda is. We don't know if they have connection to Darhk, what's going on, but there's definitely something going on with them. So Curtis has been trying to get hold of Felicity, telling her that he's almost found Ray's final message, and she tells him no, she doesn't want to hear that. Kurt says, and I like what Curtis says here. This was very interesting. Curtis says his brother died a few years ago, and he would kill to hear his voice again. And he can understand why, Ray's dead. She doesn't want to hear him again. And he knows that she probably is still suffering. Honestly, I think Felicity is still suffering. She did really care about Ray. I don't know if she loved him like she loves Oliver, but I think she really did care about Ray, and he definitely was a friend to her. And obviously, she cares about him. So I really like what Curtis said to her. I thought that was really great. So later that night, Darhk and Lance are talking. He tells Darhk about Sarah's resurrection and asks for his help with her. And Darhk says that if it were his daughter, he'd be put down. That it isn't Sarah anymore. Which I can understand what Darhk is saying. I mean, the way that Darhk is manipulating Lance is very interesting, but it's true. I mean, Sarah isn't really Sarah right now. She's pretty much kind of like a comatose Sarah. She's completely violent, she's erratic. I mean, she's not the Sara Lance that we know, and I can totally understand what Darhk is saying, that putting the Lazarus Pit, he should be really upset about it. So at the lair, Felicity names Liza Warner, who was, the lady cop. She is the lady cop, and she's been depositing large sums into offshore bank accounts. She's been trying to use dashboard cams to recognize her. And then here's where the episode gets great. Oliver, though, sees Lance talking to Darhk, and this is when things get insane. The episode was already great, but this took the episode from being great to, I think, one of the greatest Arrow episodes, honestly, of all time. I think this part was amazing. I loved it. When Lance comes home, Oliver is waiting for him to confront him about dealing his feelings with Darhk, and the two are arguing. And Lance says, "Oh, I'm doing it for Sara and Laurel." And I like what Oliver says. He says, "Stop hiding behind your daughters." I think that's very interesting he said that, because yeah, it's true. Lance always does everything he does is to protect his daughters, and I like what Oliver says. He needs to not protect them. Laurel can handle things on her own, as can Thea, and he needs to respect that. Maybe Thea, she still, is going through some stuff, but she's calmed down definitely. Laurel, though, she very much is capable of what she's doing, and I definitely agree with Oliver that he needs to trust his daughters and not be this, overbearing father. And then Oliver tells him that the reason that he wanted to run for mayor, because he wanted to impress Lance, but now he's just sickened by him. He wants nothing to do with Lance. He's really upset about what happened. I like what Lance says, though, that the reason he's with Darhk is because Darhk said he would kill Thea if he was not with Lance, and Lance obviously didn't want Thea to die, so he's doing whatever he can to protect his daughters, and he basically has no choice but to do that. And I definitely think it's a very interesting plot, and I knew things were getting very interesting between obviously Oliver and Lance, because Lance all last season was berating Oliver, for was always onto Oliver for being the Arrow and doing all these terrible things, and obviously he was really pissing him for that. But now you have the other side where Oliver's saying, "Look, you're being a bit of a hypocrite right now because you're working with the enemy, and you're supposed to be caring about your daughters, but yet you're working with the enemy." And I like that Oliver said that, because it's true. He is working with the enemy. He is doing things that are just as bad, not even if not worse than what Oliver is doing. Oliver did work with the enemy, though. Oliver worked with Roz, so I can understand people thinking that Oliver's being a hypocrite, but so is Lance. They're both being kind of hypocritical here, and I definitely like seeing that. They've both done the same thing. Oliver did to protect Thea, while Lance is obviously doing it to protect his daughters. But Oliver's changed now. Oliver is not that kind of person anymore. He doesn't want Lance to end up the same way. I think it's because he knows what happens when you work with the enemy, because he knows what happened to him last year, and he doesn't want the same thing to happen to Lance. And I definitely thought that was probably one of the best scenes we've had in Arrow in a very long time, and I absolutely love that. Amazing stuff there. So in the flashback, the soldier follows Oliver, tells him that there's something dark inside him and that he can tell it isn't Oliver's first kill. He says he's the same way, and Oliver will find out if he's lying. So this was very interesting. The way that this soldier's on Oliver can tell there's something more going on with him. This I really like. This could make the flashbacks a lot more interesting. Again, they're not that interesting, but I think this definitely made it a bit more interesting than it was. So in the present, Oliver tells Thea that he wanted to be the person who united Star City like when they were at ball games as kids. He thinks the city might be beyond saving and that he doesn't have to run because he can't save it. It's just that bad that he can't really save Star City right now, unfortunately. Which really sucks, but that's just the condition that's in, and I like that scene. I thought that was definitely really great because, now that the whole thing with Lance happened, Oliver's kind of thinking maybe I shouldn't be the mayor. And in the basement of Laurel's apartment, the chained up Sarah is looking at old photos. She's trying to get something to come back to her. You can tell that things are starting to come back to Sarah. Lance comes to shoot her, and this scene, holy shit, this scene. Lance, I've never seen Lance cried and have such deeper emotion than he did in this scene. Laurel stops him. The two are crying together before Lance runs off. He's saying, this person is not my daughter. It's such a powerful scene. You really see that breaking point. This scene with the whole thing with Oliver has really caused Lance to finally get to that breaking point. And he runs off, and in the hallway outside his apartment, the dirty cops are waiting for him. Warner beats Shim up while two others hold him. Then Laurel comes and beats a couple of guys in the hallway before they take Lance and run. And that was just an awesome scene, I have to say. Definitely really good stuff there. I definitely really like that. So basically, then we see Warner takes Lance to her little base where she believes she isn't a criminal, and they've set him up his biometrics up to open the door, which is fine because that means Felicity can see where he is. And basically, Warner and her goons are taking all the contraband they can carry and leaving. But Team Arrow shows up to stop them. Green Arrow frees Lance, who Warner had tied up, and the two groups fight. And basically, at some point, Warner gets a leg up on Oliver, putting a knife in his back, threatening to sever his spinal cord. Lance talks her down, appealing to her sense of justice, and he arrests her, which I thought that was great that he arrests her. Because this really gets Oliver's trust back. Obviously, Oliver and him were on a really rough patch, but this really gets him to get their trust back. And back at Lance's apartment, Oliver asks if he really believes in what he had to say, what he said to Warner, rather than turn himself in. And Oliver asks Lance to help him get closer to Darhk. That actually Lance could help them get closer, and I think that's true. I mean, Lance working with Darhk, that's perfect. He could help them get closer. And I like the way that Oliver is seeing that. I like the way that Oliver is turning a bad situation to a good one. That's something that Oliver's doing a lot, and I think that's something I really like they're doing with Oliver this season, I have to say. So you can definitely tell that Oliver and Lance are probably on the best terms they've been in a while, definitely. They both really understand each other. They both know how to help each other, and I really like that, definitely. I like seeing Oliver and Lance not each other's throats for once, because, I liked it last year, but we're past that. We're past that. We've seen them duke it out last season. We've seen the conflict between them. I think it's good that now they're definitely starting to understand each other more and basically realize that they're kind of the same person. They're, not really the same person, but they're doing similar things in similar situations, which I like seeing, definitely. So in the flashbacks, Oliver brings the soldier to see the woman whose corpse is still in the cave where he left her. He brings her back with a quick flip of the wrist, and he tells her he learned it on the island. And outside, the soldier finds Oliver's Argus-issued laptop and realizes that Oliver is really working for Argus. And this could be very interesting, definitely. The flashbacks are getting more interesting. Still not that into them. Still don't fully understand what's going on. I really don't, but it's good stuff overall. So at his campaign office the next morning, Oliver comes in to find the place completely staffed up. All these people are there, people he didn't even know, and Thea has actually brought them into work. And again, Thea's also trying to make up for all the violent stuff she did, which I love seeing. She's trying to make up for everything, and she's brought them into work and wrote Oliver a speech, which he delivers soon after. And it's all about how the city used to be united, and that's what they need to be. That's how the city used to be. That's what he loved about the city, and it's not, and they need to make it united. If he's the mayor, it will be united, and I definitely really love that. And we cut back to we cut back to Felicity listening to Ray's message. She is listening to his message, and you see Darhk gets this box. We don't know what it is, but there's like this box he gets, and he looks very upset about it. I don't know what that means. And then in the basement of her apartment, I love the way this episode ends, Laurel goes see Sarah, and she has escaped. So We don't know if something has caused Sara to get her jog her memory back, if maybe she saw something that made her want to go back. I'm kind of feeling like she might go back to Oliver and try to talk to him, or she's going to go to Lance. I feel like she saw something in those photos that just triggered something and made her power switch go, I am Sara Lance. That made her do that. And I think that definitely is very interesting. I'm interested in really seeing what happened there because clearly something is going to make her jog her memory, though, which I like seeing. But Lance and Oliver were just great in this episode. I really liked how understanding they are of each other and how they really know who they are now. I really love seeing that, I have to say. But let's talk about Darhk. What is this box that Darhk got? Obviously, it's something important. We don't really know what it's about, but that definitely is going to be very interesting to see what's going on with that. With the box, that's with Darhk. I don't really know what it's about, but I think it definitely is very interesting. Um, and then as far as, Sara goes, it looks like next week they're bringing Constantine. And I don't know why. I don't really see what the point is at this point. I mean, why are you bringing Constantine? Sara has escaped. She is resurrected. What the fuck is the point? I don't know why they're bringing him in. I mean, I didn't see the promo, but they're bringing him in. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with him because, they said in the show that he was kind of just, he didn't really get his time, and Constantine was just, a lot of people have said Constantine was just on the Raw network, which honestly I could see. I can understand that they're bringing him on the CW, so that could be interesting. I've never seen Constantine, so that's gonna be cool to see him. I did see the first episode. I really was not that big of a fan of it, but I definitely am interested in seeing what they do with Constantine on the next episode. But let me know what you guys think of Oliver becoming mayor, because I really think it's going to be interesting. I like seeing Oliver becoming the mayor. It really is showing Oliver transitioning from the Arrow to the Green Arrow. They're handling all that very well, I have to say. Definitely it's something I'm really enjoying. But where did Sara go? Did Sara go to Oliver? If Oliver sees her, this is really going to break him. I mean, we know, again, there's a death. There is a death that happens this season. At this point, I feel like it's gonna be Laurel. I don't know why. I feel like Laurel's gonna probably go. Laurel would really break Oliver. It would break all the characters up, really. I mean, think of Laurel. She really is not dealing with a lot right now, but that's never good for an Arrow character. When a character is not dealing with a lot, that usually means something big is going to happen to them. Which definitely something's gonna happen to Laurel. Of course, she brought back her sister, but I feel like Laurel is in danger and she's an impending doom. And what it is right now, I can't tell you, but I just don't. I feel like Laurel is definitely in danger. I don't know in what capacity, but I just feel like she is. But overall, guys, amazing episode. By far best episode of the season. The flashbacks are even getting pretty interesting with the whole thing with the soldier finding Oliver's laptop. What's going to happen with that? That I'm very interested in as well. We're going to see what happens with that. Are we going to see these dirty cops again? That's really what I'm interested in because there have to be more out there. So I feel like this is not the end we've seen. Probably the end we've seen of Warner, but not of the dirty cops. We're definitely going to see them again. I don't think this is the last we've seen of them. That's going to be interesting. Is Darhk going to find a way to ruin Oliver's campaign? Because obviously he's going to find out that Oliver's running for mayor and that the Green Arrow is the one that's running. And he's got to find out at some point that that's what's going on there. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with Oliver, because that's going to be very interesting to see what they do with that. Obviously, there has to be something that happens there. I don't know what's going to happen, but definitely something's going to happen there. And yeah, I thought that was definitely really great. Nothing really with Diggle tracking down Hive. We didn't get any of that in this episode. But that's because Diggle has his own little thing to do, and I feel like Diggle, we didn't really need that in this episode. But overall, guys, I thought this episode was just amazing. One of the best episodes we've had in so, so long. I love this episode so much. And yeah, there wasn't a lot to say. It was just a really great character-driven episode. That's really what it was. It was a great episode. It worked out so well. The acting was amazing. Some of the best we've had in a very long time. I loved every minute of it. Also, let's talk about Felicity. Is she going... What's going to happen with Bray? Obviously... The only reason I think it would bring back Constantine is to resurrect Rey. That is the only reason I would see that to happen, which does need to happen in order for Legends of Tomorrow to work. Because, of course, Rey is supposed to be on Legends of Tomorrow, so it would make sense to bring him back, but I just don't really know. Again, I didn't see the promo. I haven't seen it yet. I will check it out, but I haven't seen it yet. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. This was the best episode of the season by far. And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for the Vampire Diaries. I know I'm behind with that as well, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.